Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Let's get started with the point of today's webinar. Today, we are working on looking at conclusion paragraphs. If you've not had a chance to already, please make sure that you put your microphones on mute so that as I'm teaching, if someone has a question, they can just buzz right in. We won't have any kind of feedback from anybody else, okay? Feel free to stop me at any point during this webinar and ask me questions. The point of today's webinar, again, is to go over conclusion paragraphs. Before we do that, I just want to give a very quick overview as to what we should have covered and learned so far. All right, so the first thing you want to do is think about what is the topic of this essay. The topic of this essay should be a narrowed aspect of what you did for your research proposal, okay? So if in your research proposal you came up with a hypothesis that was really broad, you want to just give me one narrowed aspect of it. And to do that, you could go in and find one of your topic sentences from your research proposal. You can use the material that's in that particular paragraph or that topic sentence to help you figure out where you want to pull your content from to use in your body paragraphs. All right? Are there any questions about how to come up with your topic and how to get your first thesis statement written? Okay, good. All right, so if there are no questions about that, then let's move on. If you pulled one of the thesis statements from your research, if you pull one of your topic sentences from your research proposal, don't forget you're going to want to rephrase it, and you're going to want to try to make it a sentence that is more descriptive than perhaps your topic sentence was. And to do that, you can replace it, you can replace vague words, or you can use natural divisions. And natural divisions are going to be basically the three things or four things you're going to talk about in the body paragraphs of your essays. You can create phrases for the topic sentences affiliated with each of those body paragraphs, and then create a natural division in order to have a strong thesis. All right, so you can use more descriptive words or create natural divisions in order to make a good thesis. Are there any questions about that? Okay. So one of the things you want to edit for when you're looking at your thesis statement is you want to make sure that you are not making an announcement where you tell me that this is what the thesis of your paper is going to be, or where you tell me this is what your paper is going to be about. You don't want to do that for either your thesis statement, nor do you want to do that for your topic sentences, okay? Instead, just say very plainly in an informative sentence what your essay is going to be about without telling me this is what it's going to be about. All right, for your introduction paragraph, don't forget you should be using this structure, which is the preferred structure, and it should include an introductory statement, a bridge, a thesis, and a conclusion statement. Don't forget that that introductory statement should include an eye-catching introductory idea. So it could be historical or factual data. It could be a shocking statistic. It can be an anecdote, or it could be a rhetorical question. You can use a famous quote. So there are a variety of ways to catch my attention and to engage me very earlier as your audience and pull me into your analytical essay, all right? And don't forget to look at the pro tips to help you revise either your bridge or your introductory statements, okay? You have pro tips here to help you out. If you were unsure about how long your bridge should be, let me just make this this small point. I've had a few student conferences since the last webinar, and one of the things that I find that I'm continuously saying is that your bridge should be longer. Don't forget, when you are developing a bridge, this is from your research proposal section, you should develop it using at least 3 pros and cons, okay? Or 3 agreements and disagreements, or three various points of view. Whatever it is, three makes a discussion, right? One to one idea to one idea, that's a point of view. This thought, this thought. Two is still two people just sharing two different points of view. When you get to three levels of ideas, now this is a discussion when people have to go back and forth over three things. So that's what you're wanting to build, something that's nice and sturdy, a bridge that leads to your thesis statement. Are there any questions about creating bridges? Okay, any questions about thesis statements? Okay, all right, let's move on. All right, so I'm not going to go over the sample introduction. We already did this, but don't forget, you want to go through the revision checklist just to make sure that you have everything the way that it should be before you meet with me for our conference, and definitely before you turn in your essay, if you choose not to meet with me before the conference. Before you submit the essay. The last time we met, we talked about body paragraphs. And with body paragraphs, you want to make sure that you're thinking about this structure, okay? You need a topic sentence with a clear statement that explains your thesis statement in some way. You need evidence, and evidence comes in various forms. Please watch webinar 2 in order to get a sense of how to use that evidence and where it's best located in your paragraph. Explanations have been a challenge as I've been going over information in the conferences. People are oversighting and using a lot of evidence to speak for them because they're saying that the evidence is fact-based, which it is, and you're right. But don't forget, you have summary and paraphrase at your disposal to be able to kind of negotiate and start pulling through some of those ideas while you massage them in. Your job as the writer is to explain the evidence that you're giving. All right, so you have to go in and start using some of those statistics or some of those facts and start analyzing it and talking about how this works as it relates to your topic. Keep in mind the evidence that you offer was written for another person's thesis. You have to use the evidence to support your thesis, and that's where the explanation comes in. And don't forget, you also need to have significant sentences that lead the reader back into your thesis statement. One of the things that you want to be aware of is that that significant statement should be near the end of the paragraph, generally speaking. Are there any questions about the body paragraph? Okay, all right, good. Bunch of no's in the chat. Okay, I haven't seen very many conclusion statements, and the one that I've seen so far in the student conferences was done really well. It transitioned us from her body paragraphs very, very nicely. It was very well done. All right, so the whole last webinar was talking about using secondary sources as evidence, and so I won't spend any time on that now. All that I wanted to say on it, I just said in the previous slide. So please watch webinar 2 if you need help with that. Don't forget, you want to look at the samples from the earlier assignments. I think you had a discussion question last week or the week before where you had to look at sample student essays and then start to analyze or evaluate how well the students executed different parts of the analytical essay. So here is a breakdown of information so that you can kind of get a sense of how maybe I would, or how you should, or how other people who analyze other people's assignments would look at the sample paragraph that we have here. All right, so you can look at that and double check it according to the guidelines of the assignment. And no RTL lab in this webinar. Today we are working on conclusion paragraphs, and there's not a lot to say here, right? We've already learned so much about conclusion paragraphs. And in what we've learned so far, we know that for the conclusion paragraph, you should reflect and project. Those are the two things that we take out of the research proposal assignment, that we take out of the Gandhi essay. We still have this concept of reflect and project. So one of the things you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open your conclusion paragraph with a reflection on your thesis statement. and maybe even include in that sentence a projection. You may want to put that in a second sentence. Don't forget, when you close out the conclusion paragraph, you want to use a conclusion transition word. This is kind of something that we as professors think that you already know to do. So if it's something that you already know to do, great. If it's something that maybe you haven't been expected to do in previous classes, this is something that you're going to want to do for this assignment. You want to make sure that you add a conclusion transition word before you get to your content in your conclusion paragraph. All right, so reflection is going to be a summary of your thesis statement, maybe even a rephrasing of your thesis statement, but it's going to be basically reintroducing your thesis statement. The projection will take the audience into how this thesis statement could be perceived or looked at in the end. I've seen students take the reflect part of this and do it in the first part of the conclusion paragraph. And I've seen students end with their thesis projection, okay? And we see that here when it says make a prediction. This is a clever way to do reflect and project. So you can reflect in this sentence and you can project as the final sentence of your conclusion paragraph. I keep wanting to say body paragraph, of your conclusion paragraph, okay? So making a prediction really works in this way. For your topic sentences, you are going to want to use reflect and project for each of the topic sentences. Obviously, the reflection is going to be the summary, but the projection is going to be how your topic sentence could be perceived or looked at, or maybe even reimagined or re-researched in the future, okay? So this should be developed to at least 6 sentences, maybe 5, but this part of the paragraph should be pretty well developed. So I shouldn't see any little skinny, 3-sentence paragraphs here or 4-sentence paragraphs. You want to put some effort into this reflect and project idea, particularly because this is the 3rd time that you're practicing this skill, so we should be getting stronger at it with each assignment. Are there any questions about the thesis statements and the topic sentence in reflect and project before I go further, because we're just about at the end? Okay. So far the chat says no. Okay. All right, so this is a very important sentence, the conclusion statement in the conclusion paragraph. And the reason that it's important is because it's what I read, what your audience reads, what your grader will read at the end of your essay. So this is the last thing that we see before we make a judgment about if your essay is good or bad, strong or weak or whatever. So you want to end with a bang, okay? And this is kind of what this particular page is about. So one of the things you want to do, you want to end with a final point. Okay, so that's one way you can end. You just want to make a nice, strong point at the end of your paragraph. All right. So if you think about it, in this sentence, which is this final point, look at this statement. It says, they show us the path to greatness and offer us the ability to walk that path with them. I mean, that's like a really heady thought. So obviously this paragraph is talking about heroes, but look at what they're saying down here. They show us the path to greatness. Don't you feel inspired by this? And they offer us the opportunity to walk that path with them. I mean, it's a very inspiring idea. So that's going to be a final point. You can inspire, or you can in some way push your idea forward with a final point. You can kind of hammer it home again. And it feels a lot like a reflection in the thesis statement, but it's a little bit heavier because it's actually trying to inspire or trying to evoke an energy or evoke some sort of power with this final point. You're trying to do something to kind of anchor down. All right. Are there any questions about a final point or ending with a final point?
Can we be a little more biased about that part?
It's not going to necessarily be a bias as much as it would be maybe a warning. If that's about as far in the subjective as you could go, right? Because the point of this paper is meant to inform. So if you take bias into it, right at the end, you'll add in a certain level of subjectivity. However, the subjectivity is implied if it's a warning, right?
Okay.
It's not as overt.
Okay.
That's a great question. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Let's talk about the next way. So you could end with making a prediction. I've already talked about that. But here's a sentence. Disability as a problem will likely completely disappear by the middle of the current century. All right, so again, that's making me think, I don't know, will it? Okay, well, based on what you said, yeah, it could. Okay, great. All right, so that's making me again think about what's being said. When you predict, then you force your audience to imagine in the way that you're imagining. And it's just a really strong and powerful way to conclude your paper. And you use this prediction or this projecting aspect throughout the paper anyway. So you can do it nice and strong down here at the bottom. Again, maybe with a projection or prediction regarding your thesis. Any questions about that? Okay. And then finally, you can end by asking a question, all right? So if you leave the reader with a problem that maybe they need to think about, again, it leaves a lasting. I wonder how I got kicked out of my own meeting. Are you guys back?
Yeah, I thought something happened.
It froze up and then I don't know what happened.
Oh,
I thought it was my Wi-Fi.
no, it's I got kicked out of my own meeting. That was weird. Okay, so maybe I'll have to record this whole thing without you guys. Okay, so hopefully it kept recording. We'll see what happened. All right. Okay, so here, asking a question is a great way to close out an essay. Look at the example we have here. How far would these Apple cultists go when humanity is even more dependent on Apple technology in the future? Well, clearly you can't use cultist in your analytical paper, but you can totally use it in your argument paper, right? So I just want to make sure I clarify that. But you can ask a question to make your audience think over and over and over again about what you've said. And I say this all the time to my students. I should be, thinking about your paper while I'm eating my lunch at Chick-fil-A. I should have something at the end to make me question, maybe what I thought about your topic before reading your paper. And so you want to ask that type of question at the end. Did I get kicked out of my own meeting again? No, I'm still here. Okay. All right. Are there any questions at all? I just realized there's no screen share here. This is just getting better and better and better. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, let's try this one more time. So asking a question here at the end is definitely a good way to get your reader thinking about your topic even after they finished your paper, all right? So don't forget, you want to use nice, strong questions. I did not mention that how and why questions are good questions to use here, but you already know that from the research proposal when you were working on your research question, right? So you know to use how and why. All right, now, are there any questions? Let's check the chat. Okay, yes. Okay, all right. So it doesn't look like we have any questions. And so I am going to end the webinar for today. Sorry for all of the mishap. That was weird. But I'm glad that you guys checked in, and I'll see if I have any editing skills at all, which I don't believe I have. So those of you guys who are watching, just know you saw the whole mishap happen. All right. Thank you.
Wait, I have one more question.
Yes.
So on the what's cited like part, do we have to like type in what's cited, or can we just like you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. All you have to do is type in works cited. Let's look at the sample.
Sorry, okay, yeah.
No, it's okay. Let's look at the sample. That way we can get super clear. All right, no RTL lab for this one. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so this student typed in works cited. It happens to be left justified, but here is the works cited page. Notice everything is alphabetized. Notice that there are a ton of errors here because, oops, there are a ton of errors here because there's all caps here and things like that that shouldn't be there. So, you know, the student did not get as many points as maybe they could have. There's bold here, you know, and I'm not really sure why. So, you know, you want to look for all of those things. If you look at the next sample, you'll see this student also added works cited, but notice that it's in better shape. There are not as many errors, and they probably copied and pasted this directly from their preliminary bibliography, which is perfect. And then we'll look at the next one, and for the works cited, here we go. We have it here. This student centered theirs, which is always nice, but it's not necessary. It can go on the left. And again, we have all of his sources here, but a couple of small errors in this particular one. And so, you know, you just want to make sure that you double check any comments that you received on your preliminary bibliography or annotated bibliography relating the source information before copying and pasting that source into your works cited. Are there any additional questions? That's a great question.
I sent a question. I don't know if you saw it on the chat.
I haven't seen it just yet. Hang on one second. Let me take a look. The chat. So the chat closed out everything for me except the comment that the screen wasn't shared. Do you mind sending it again and telling me what it is?
You want me to send it or tell you?
It's up to you.
Okay. You see where she has is it Jen? Andrea? Is it because she has that et al? E-T-A-L? Is that what you're saying is wrong?
No, the et al is appropriate because it means that there are more authors that are not listed.
Okay.
But I thought you said we can't use that in a preliminary bibliography.
You can't use it in your annotated bibliography whenever you're writing in your
Oh, okay.
You shouldn't have et al there. You would instead have Andrea Ginsky and her team of researchers in the actual sentence. But in the source, yes. And in the medical citation, you would have all of this information.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It's a great question. Any other questions? These are really good questions.
So you were saying some of her citation was not correct. Which other examples?
I will go over citations individually. I don't want to hold everybody to go over citations, but I will do that. Just hang on the call for a little bit longer, and we'll have to review preliminary bib information as we look at that, because it'll take a little while, and I don't want to hold everybody for that, but I'm glad to work with you on that for sure. Are there any other questions? Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. If you have questions after we end the video recording, then just hang on. Definitely ask. And then for those of you who are watching this webinar, hopefully you scrubbed through all the weird parts and you got to the very end. But do definitely also reach out to me with questions if you have. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.